kind attention. This time I'd like to introduce Bill Hathaway, our Provisional Chairman of Education, to present educational tools. Bill's
direct. We've become an easy conquest to those who can now barely hold us in check. So what does Jefferson mean by this? Well, the goal of the ICRC is to restore the constitutional republic. And Jefferson is telling us that there are some problems that we can encounter. One is we need large masses of people on our side. We don't have that, but we need to get that. And I think what also Jefferson is telling us is, although single issues are a fact of politics and are something that we deal with, and there's nothing wrong with single issues. When we have tons of freedom-loving groups out there, libertarians, you can name hundreds of these groups, that all have freedom as a message. What happens is we get fragmentation because one issue will end up tearing the groups from joining with each other. We need to stop that. That needs to come to an end so that we can join all these groups together. We need a single issue that we can all live with as our platform. Well, the Constitution is the single issue and needs to be the single issue. Now, I'm not talking about the Constitution that's legislated by the courts. We're not talking about that Constitution. As we know, if you're a constitutional scholar, you know that the courts don't make law anyway. What we're talking about is it's broken. Oh, wait a minute. I think I got it here. Let's see if it works now. Okay. Also, not the Constitution that's taught in the government schools. We're not talking about that either, because that's not the Constitution we're looking at. What we're looking at is we're looking at the Constitution as it was written and envisioned by our founding fathers. And we know that from Madison's convention notes, from the Federalist Papers of Hamilton, Jay, and Madison, and from various other writings of the founders. So there's no doubt that we can figure out what they were thinking, what the consensus was. Jefferson said it best. On every question of construction, carry ourselves back to the time when the Constitution was adopted. Recollect the spirit manifested in the debates, and instead of trying what meaning may be squeezed out of the text or invented against it, conform to the probable one in which it was packed. So we have our issue. We know it's the Constitution. We see it through our founders' vision. The general population is ignorant about the true nature of our Constitution. It's our job to end that ignorance. Thomas Jefferson, another Jefferson quote. As I told you, I like Jefferson. I know no safe depository of the ultimate powers of society but the people themselves. And if we think them not enlightened enough to exercise their control with a wholesome discretion, the remedy is not to take it from them, but to inform their discretion by education. This is the true corrective of abuses of constitutional power. So how do we do this? This is the ICRC vision for education of the masses. This is how we plan to do it. We need to develop a constitutional education class that actually can be taught anytime to any group of people, regardless of age. We need to find people who have studied the Constitution and enlist them as our core group of teachers. It's very important to have a core group of teachers. Those teachers will then end up training other people. But they must be willing to do the following if you're a core teacher. You must be willing to educate the teaching course and invest the time to make our core education program. You must be willing to go out and teach the course as needed. And you must be willing to train other people to become constitutional scholars and teachers of the course. You also must learn proper communication skills. Bob hit on communication skills a little bit with the neighborhood program. You don't want to be intimidating to these people. You want these people to listen to you and be interested in what you're saying. I see trained teachers as being used in a lot of ways, but one of the ways I see them being utilized is to interview candidates for public office. We talked about the ICRC going to endorse candidates for public office. What better way to learn about these people than to bring them in for an interview in front of our core teachers and have the teachers interview them. And this will not be a piece of paper they get that has all the questions written down on it. It'll be questions coming from us. Are they going to answer every question right? No. But we will be able to tell very quickly if these people actually are who they say they are. And that's how I see the teachers being able to do that. Trained teachers can be used to train other teachers in other states, so the program can spread nationwide. So where do we teach? We teach in the ICRC neighborhood groups. You may have a neighborhood group one day and you may have something that you want to talk about at that meeting, and you say, well, this is a constitutional issue. Maybe I can have my friend Bill come and he can just be there to answer some questions. Homeschoolers, very good place to teach. Local political functions, local high schools during Constitution Week. I believe there's a Indiana state law that says during Constitution Week they're supposed to teach a Constitution class in schools. I don't think it's done, but I can see us maybe being the person that does that. Community events, local festival booths, gun shows, local charitable organizations, church groups, website, the ICRC.com. We can also, I envision as having a blog where we can have one of our constitutional teachers on the blog in the evening and let people know that they are going to be there. They can come on and ask questions about issues, and those teachers can come back and give them the constitutional basis of that issue. The possibilities are endless. As far as the Indiana State Constitution is concerned, we will train them in teaching of the Indiana State Constitution. Indiana State Constitution and the state constitution are a little different. They're written in more modern English. They're fairly easy to understand, and it's something that, if you've got a dictionary and can read and can understand what you're reading, you should be able to understand what the Indiana Constitution says. Much of the content of the state constitutions, as far as like in the Indiana Constitution, the Bill of Rights and the Indiana Constitution, a lot of that comes from the U.S. Constitution. Once people understand the federal Constitution, I think most of them will be self-driven to look at the Indiana State Constitution. Just a quick story. I was working with a group for a long time where we were trying to limit the property tax in the state of Indiana. We had a treatise written out that was fabulous, about 20 pages long. We had it all worked out how you could eliminate the property tax, what you could and how you could replace it, and in fact, we didn't want to replace it with anything. But we had actually determined that Article 8, Section 2 of the Indiana Constitution actually said how the Common School Fund is funded. We looked in there and we determined that nowhere in there did it mention your and my property tax. It's in corporate property tax, but nothing about yours and my property tax. And that is about 35 to 40% of your property tax goes to that. We lost. We lost because we didn't have the numbers. We didn't have the people behind us. I also, at that time, had a conversation with a representative from Vincennes. I told him that was in the Constitution, and that made the property tax unconstitutional, the way they were spending the money. And he told me, in no uncertain terms, that, the Constitution, if it doesn't tell them they can't do something, they can do it. So obviously he didn't understand the Constitution. Also had another gentleman who was running for office, who was running for state senate from LaPorte County, where I lived at that time. I asked him if he was familiar with this. Proceeded to tell me he had not read the Indiana State Constitution. That's what we're dealing with. Thomas Paine said, "Those who expect to reap the blessings of freedom must like men undergo the fatigues of supporting it. And my favorite Thomas Paine quote is this one: "It is the duty of the patriot to protect the people from their government." Thank you.